What is up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to FBC Okarche The Well. We're happy that you could join us today. Starting today, we're going to be looking at the book of Daniel. Okay? I think it's really important because the whole purpose of the book of Daniel was to encourage those in times of oppression or persecution that they could not just survive, but that it was possible to thrive as a faithful follower of God, right? And this may be a little bit different situation than they were in, but right now we're in a situation where, man, it's really hard to feel like your walk with God may be going right. You know what I mean? We're stuck at home. We can't get together as churches as we normally would, but there's still ways that we can seek God and thrive in our spiritual walk with God. And we're going to use the book of Daniel just because I think that there's 4 guys in this book that are really great leaders and encouragers to show what it means to stay faithful to God, and also to help encourage us to stay on track with God, to stay faithful and to stay loyal to Him. Okay? So I'm not going to read the whole first chapter. We're going to start with chapter 1 today and really just kind of get an intro of what's going on. Okay, so to start off, Jerusalem was going to be overthrown by Babylon. Okay? They were under the leadership of King Nebuchadnezzar, okay? And so and this is something that happens all throughout the Old Testament, right? Israel is walking great with God, but then they start to steer away, and then somebody overthrows them, right? And then through that, they come back to God and then work with Him for a while, and then they start to fall short and they fall back into sin, they're overthrown again. And so this is one of those stages in the Old Testament where Israel is being overthrown, right? So Israel is overthrown by Babylon, right, under the leadership of King Nebuchadnezzar. And the king ordered for some of the young Israelite men to be brought into his service and to be trained by the chief of his court officials. Okay? And he would target specifically handsome young men that were really, really intelligent. They probably would have been of noble birth, but they were going to be trained in language and literature of Babylon, right? And the king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from his own table, right? They were going to train for 3 years and then enter the king's service, okay? So these are guys that were transplanted from Jerusalem into the king's court to be trained to serve him. Basically, they're trying to turn the best of the best Israelites into court officials in Babylon, right? So they're kind of trying to change who they are and work them around to be something that maybe they're not, right? And so we're going to look at verses 6 through 7 really quick. It says, among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Okay? Now hold on, those last 3 you're going to recognize here in a minute. Verse 7 says, the chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar; to Hananiah, Shadrach; to Mishael, Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. Okay? And you guys have heard, if you've been in church for a while, you've probably heard of for sure one of these guys, but probably all 4 of them, right? Daniel, we're going to see later on in this book, is the same Daniel from Daniel in the Lion's Den. And many of you have probably heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Even if you haven't heard their given Hebrew names, you've probably heard the name that the king renamed them, right? So why did the chief official, why did he give them new names? Okay? But it was an attempt to reprogram the Israelite men. Right? It's an attempt to turn them to continue to say, you know what, you're not going to be an Israelite anymore. You're going to be in service to Babylon. Right? Their Hebrew names honored the one true God, but their Babylonian names would honor pagan gods. Right? Just for a couple examples, Daniel, the name Daniel means God is my judge, but then the name that they gave him, Belteshazzar, means the divine lady protects the king. Okay, then Azariah is the Lord is my help. But Abednego means something like servant of Nabu. Now, that's not the Nabu from Star Wars. That'd be cool, but that's not what we're talking about here. Hananiah is the Lord has been gracious. We're not really sure exactly what Shadrach means. That's kind of under debate. And then Mishael is who is what God is. And Meshach isn't known for sure, but it's thought to be referring to the god Marduk. Okay? They are trying to wipe out their previous identities of being servants of God and servants and being from Israel, Jerusalem, right? And they're trying to make them these new people, right? To say, you're not from that anymore. You're going to be servants of our King, not servants of your God. All right? So let's look at verses 8 through 21 and see what happens. And I'm just going to read that whole section, and then we'll talk about it, okay? It says, among those who were chosen, I already read that. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to David. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord the king who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other men, or the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. Verse 11, Daniel then said to the guard whom the official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. Okay, so ancient Babylonian art depicts wise men as being kind of pudgy but really well fed, right? What the king was going to feed them would have achieved that, right? They wouldn't have been like scrawny or even looking cut or fit. They would have been a little overweight and looking like they had eaten really well their whole lives, right? And David only refused the royal food on a temporary basis, right? He said, what about 10 days? Okay? So it wasn't to keep kosher or to avoid like a political stance or anything like that. David refused the food to leave room for God to work. Okay? Instead of becoming, and what happened at first? The guy that was over him, the guard over him said, no, like the king will have my head if he sees you looking worse than everybody else. But Daniel, he doesn't settle, he doesn't become discouraged, he just finds another way around to find a way to work for God, right? To find another way to see God's work done, all right? And I think that's something that we need to look at when it comes to like sharing our faith and witnessing to people is, man, we can look at Daniel's examples like, man, he tried to get something done, he was told no. Right? How many times has that happened to you? I know it's happened to me where I've tried to share my faith with somebody and I got shot down. Right? It's not always you know what, we can never have that conversation again. Sometimes it's just we need to find a new path, a new way, a new avenue to reach that person. Kind of like Daniel did right here with in this story where with the guard, he's like, hey man, look, we can prove it to you. Just give us 10 days. Let us do this so that we can, so just like, trust me, it's going to happen. Right? Then the diet of vegetables and water would have left the 4 young men looking worse than the other guys, right? They wouldn't have been filled out like they should have been or anything like that. They would have been the opposite of what the king desired. But instead, Daniel's actions left room for God to demonstrate that he, not the king, is in control and is the reason that the young men would succeed. Okay? God gave them wisdom and understanding beyond any other. They far exceeded all the others that were being trained. They to the point to where they looked 10 times better. They were 10 times more wise, more knowledgeable, more prepared to serve the king, right? The king likely thought it was because of his training program as well, right? But what did Daniel and the other guys, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah knew that it was from the one true God that they had been blessed and put in that position. Okay, and what we can see in this first chapter is God preparing the table to do something amazing. right? We know the story of Daniel and the lion's den is a cool story. There's the story of what we know as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being thrown in the fiery furnace is a cool story, but it doesn't happen unless these things happen first, right? Daniel and Mishael and Hananiah and Azariah, they left room for God to work, right? They followed God and trusted in him and said, this isn't a great situation. Our country's been overthrown. We're serving a king that we don't want to serve, but we're going to follow God. We're going to trust in God and have faith in him and leave room for him to do something awesome. Right? And that should be our goal, is looking for ways to leave room for God to do amazing things. And when he calls us to do something, to follow and trust in him and say, yes, God, I will follow you. I will trust in you, and I'll do what you would have me to do. Right? When we're faithful to God, we can see the fruit, we can see the results of what he has for us. And God blessed these men because they remained faithful to him. Right? Daniel knew that God could do something amazing. Right? Daniel's the one that wrote this. Okay, and he even says, God made them stronger, 10 times better than any other men. When we remain faithful to God, we can see the fruit of him working in our lives. So things may seem really difficult right now. Right? It's whatever is going on in your life, it may seem like that you're not in the best situation. But remain faithful to God. Give him opportunities to work. And when he calls you, make sure you respond. You guys have a great week. We'll look at chapter 2 next week. Don't forget to check our social medias for anything else that we would put out. And then if you want to be involved in our Sunday evening Bible study that we're doing virtually, let me know, and I'll get you an invitation sent to that. You guys have a great week. We'll see you later.